Hi, I'm Tracy Hales-Vass, writer, retired professor of creative writing, and founder of One Book, One Community. I now host Right on Four Corners every Wednesday, 10:30 to 11, when I'll talk to local and regional authors. So please join me Wednesdays here on 90.9 FM KSJE Farmington.
It's Monday morning here on KSJE, and time for our Monday Reboot segment. Lewis Campbell is joining me this morning from Cintigy Computer Systems to talk technology, as we always do on Mondays. Lewis, good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for being with us. And some creepy, I think it's creepy news out of Disney about their animatronic robots that we're familiar with, huh?
Yeah, so we all know that Disney, when you go to Disney theme parks and so forth, you have the little, the animatronic robots that, kind of eat, it's a small world after all.
Yes, thank you.
With various characters.
Yeah.
Well, Disney, animatronics is a big part of Disney, right? They do a lot of research in this kind of thing. And of course, we also know that there is places that do research into robotics. Well, the Disney animatronics people are starting to go into that, and they've been playing around, apparently, in the lab at least, with artificial intelligence and coming up with maybe kind of semi-sentient animatronics. So we might see a day in the future where we have Disney animatronics that can have some kind of maybe limited interaction with customers.
Interesting.
So that could be interesting.
Yeah.
And
okay. And I could see it. I'm surprised that it's taken them this long to start talking about this, but I imagine because it's Disney, they want it to be a quality interaction, and so they really don't want there to be any problems. And I think some AIs are still a little bit off. Right?
Yeah.
They're not quite human yet.
Yeah, so we'll have to see how it comes out, but it's an interesting bit of information that Disney is doing this.
Very much, very true. The other thing I know we were talking about before we came on the air was the FCC has recommended some of the highest fines for some folks responsible for some robocalls.
Yeah, I believe it's a $5 million fine. So there's these two gentlemen, Jacob Wall.
I hate them. I'm sure everybody hates anyone behind these robocalls. So no fine can be high enough, in my opinion.
And it's you have to understand the FCC rarely ever agrees on anything because it's a bipartisan commission that's usually kept pretty evenly bipartisan.
Yeah.
But these two guys, Jacob Wall and Jack Berkman, what they had done, which made everybody so angry, is they built a system where they were making tons of robocalls prior to the election last year to African American people, basically telling them, hey, if you vote, or if you vote by mail at least, your stuff is going to go on a list, and people are going to the government's going to come after you. They're going to try to force you to take COVID shots. They're going to they're going to look for, see if you have outstanding warrants, and if you believe in civil rights. And they claimed that they were a civil rights organization and they were there to protect. So it was pretty, and if you listen to the calls, it's actually as bad as it sounds. And so, and again, not taking a political side one way or the other, but the and the FCC, both the Republican and the Democrats on the FCC unanimously voted to fine these people, just because of the flagrancy of what they had done. And it's the largest fine the FCC's ever levied for something like this. And then for everybody else too, it's like this sets a good precedent, because we got to start doing something. Somebody's got to start doing something about robocalls and about spam. So I think this could, I know that there's a lot of free speech advocates that would say cry foul with this, but there's got to be a middle of the road, in my opinion. And I think spam has not only hurt people around the world, but it's hurt the IT industry. So I'd like to see both phone spam and email spam. So I like to see things that are done to try and curb that kind of thing.
Very true. Good point. And there was a story that I wanted to share, because I know we talked about it last week or 2 weeks ago about the T-Mobile breach. Remember that?
Yes.
Right. And so the guy behind the T-Mobile breach is an American, 21 years old, who now lives in Turkey. And this is a story on Axios. He told the Wall Street Journal that He was poking around at the T-Mobile equipment with I guess a publicly available tool, and found a weak. Let's see. Let me find exactly what I went on to read to you here, because I found it a minute ago. He discovered an unprotected router exposed on the internet after scanning the carrier's internet addresses for weak spots using a publicly available tool. And I know you know what that means probably than the rest of us.
Yeah, so I can break that down to English, right?
Yeah, please. Right.
Just about anybody and their uncle can go online and find, these are really easy to get, what are called port scanning tools. So you basically take this thing, and if you know the public IP address, so the address that that on the internet that says this is where I'm at, of a company's web server or whatever,
right?
You can use these tools to go to that IP address and basically scan for openings. And the scanning tool will tell you when it finds what are called ports that are unprotected. And then from there you can use a host of then you can go on the dark web and get all these hacker tools that will try all kinds of different vulnerabilities that we know about, and see if they can use any of those vulnerabilities to get through those holes. So that's apparently what he did. And it's not it doesn't require like the most brilliant hacker in the world to do something like that.
Right.
And it also shows that there was the fact that there was a router with a port open that exposed a vulnerability, and that vulnerability allowed him to get far enough to actually steal information, shows that that particular part of T-Mobile's network was probably not protected as much as it could be.
Right.
Now, having said that, I can tell you that working for a company and making sure that all those things are protected, there's a lot of people that are going to pile on and say, yeah, the company didn't do a good job, their IT people suck. It takes a lot of work and a lot of effort to make sure that all the different ways that you can get into a company are plugged.
Right. Especially a company like T-Mobile, right? I mean, that's just major with millions of customers.
And that's true. But that just amplifies the problem, because that means they have more to protect.
True.
And it's harder. The more you have, the harder it is to do.
Very true.
Your one computer could have, your one computer has 65,000, at least 65,536 ports that could be open. Now multiply that by tens of thousands of computers or whatever, or at least hundreds of routers that T-Mobile may have. So that's the kind of thing and that's just protecting ports. There's a ton of other things that you have to do to make sure that there's no vulnerabilities exposed to the outside. It takes money, planning, dedication, of a large team, full-time effort to be able to thoroughly protect a company.
Right.
So,
right.
Well, and these things happen.
Job security for people like you, I suppose.
Yeah, well, everybody keeps saying that, but I'll tell you, you don't want job security if things are failing. You want to have job security because you're doing a good job.
You want to avoid that. That's very true. But they use you for that. So, all right.
Yep.
Well, Louis, thanks so much. Always great to visit with you.
Hey, thank you. Everybody have a great week.
All right, you too. That is Louis Campbell from Cintigy Computer Systems, my guest this morning on KSJE Farmington.
In 1982, the nation dedicated the Vietnam War Memorial. It was one of the ways healing